Okay, hello everyone. This is Victor Momo from Excel Moments. And in this video, I want to talk about two of the 14 new functions recently released to Office Insiders. That's wrap calls and wrap rows. So wrap columns and wrap rows. So essentially, what do these functions do? They just help you, convert like a one-dimensional array, whether that it could be a row vector, a column vector, into a 2D, right? So when you have one row or one column of data, you then want to transform that into, multiple rows or multiple columns. Then you should think wrap rows or wrap columns. They're similar but different in some way, so you must understand the differences. First thing I think I will mention is that when you have wrap columns, right, the data spills from one column to the next. Okay, so it means to start here, when it's done with column 1, it goes to column 2, and then it goes to column 3. Whereas in wrap rows, you start on the rows, right? Then it moves to the next row, and then it moves to the next row. Okay, so that's kind of what I've tried to highlight here. Wrap calls goes from column to column, or essentially to go top to bottom, then left to right. Okay, then when you're with wrap rows, that one goes from left to right, then top to bottom. Okay, but enough talk. Let's do something. So I'll do wrap calls, and I'm going to take this. This is what I'm just going to use 1 to 10 just to show you how it spills it. Okay. Now, when wrap calls ask you for wrap counts, so this is the difference between wrap calls and wrap rows. When they're asking you for wrap counts, it's asking you for the number of rows in every column. Okay. So how many rows am I going to have per column, essentially? So if you see the way I've set this up, I want to have 4 rows, right? 4 rows per column. So I do 4. Right, and that's it. Okay, but you notice that because it's not exactly divisible, by 4, so that's why you have 2 NAs here. That's where the third argument comes in handy. Okay, that's the pad width, so which just determines, what is displayed if I don't have enough data, to fill in the grid. So I just put here maybe blanks. Okay, so you can see how it spills. It goes down here, then it goes this way, then it goes to the next. Let's see how it compares with wrap rows. So wrap rows, I'm going to use the same data set. Now, when it's asking me for, wrap count. So now this one, because I'm dealing with wrap rows, is the number of columns you have per row. Okay, number of columns per row. So you can see that the way I've set this up, I want to have 4 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I just do 4. I can put my pad width because I'm going to have an issue anyway. So, right. So you can see how this spills. It spills 1, 2, 3, 4. Next row, next. Fine. So let's go into the next one. Simple examples just to highlight how they work. The first one here, I just want to split this data into the different quarters. First question I ask myself is, how is the data coming in? This is quarter 1, so it means there'll be January here, February here, March. So I'm going first in the column before I move to the next column for quarter 2. So in that case, I need wrap calls. Okay, right? That's how I think about it. Right. So now, since the wrap calls is now like my wrap count is how many rows do I have per column? So because in each quarter you have, of course, 3 months, so that's 3. Right. I think everything will be fine, so I don't need my pad width. Right. So here I could just do a Control-Shift-#. Right, and that's fine. Okay. Next one. This is one I've done previously on my channel. Here, I think the formula I have here is using, the index, rows and columns functions. I've done it also with index and sequence. But here I'm going to attempt to do it with one of wrap calls or wrap rows. Okay, so the way the data just goes is simple. You have one column of data and you want to generate this, right? So these first 5, are your headers, the next 5 transpose, next, and so on, right? So the only thing I ask myself is, how's the data coming in, right? Is it coming in, from top to bottom, from left to right? As you can see, it goes in the rows first, then it goes to the next row, it goes to the next row. So I know I need, in this case, wrap rows, okay? Right, and then I select my column vector, and then it's asking me for my wrap count, which is now the number of columns I need per row. Okay, and as you can see, there are 5 columns per row. So I just do 5. I think the math works here based on the data I already have, so I'm not going to use the pad width. Right, and we are fine. Okay, good. Okay, so in this last example, I'm going to simulate, breakout rooms. If you've ever attended a Teams meeting where, people are broken out into smaller rooms, maybe so they can, manage the discussion at that level, get to know themselves, diversity and inclusion, you would understand what I'm talking about. So what I want to be able to do is to use wrap rows, wrap calls to be able to simulate that, right? But the first thing is, when you break people out into rooms, sometimes you don't want to do it, maybe alphabetically. You just want to do it randomly. So the first thing I want to be able to do is to be able to kind of have a randomized, list here. So let's see. I have 50 employees, and I just want to create a random list. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort this data by random numbers. So that means that every time I kind of do F9, or in my own case function F9, it's going to generate, a new order for me. So I'm going to just do sort by, simple, select the data, go down, lock that, and then I can use rand array and I make sure that the dimensions are same. In this case, I know it's 50. I'm just going to keep it at that. You can go use count A, but well, let's keep it simple first, right? So in this case, I know that for the rand array, the last argument integer here will give me 4. So it's going to actually use random numbers between 0 and 1, which for me, I kind of feel, yeah, that's truly random, right? Yeah, because those numbers are hardly ever going to be the same. Okay, so I don't need to do anything more. I'm just going to select this and then close. Okay, so it means that I could write, and just use F9 and it's creating a random list for me. Okay, so that's fine. So now I have a random list. The next thing is breaking it down into, the columns that are required. So in this case, the first question I would typically ask myself is, do I need wrap rows or wrap calls? Okay, but I think in this case, I'm going to go in the reverse, like reverse engineering. I already know the number of columns I want, because if I want to break them into 5 rooms, that's automatically my number of columns. And once I know my number of columns, I should really be using wrap rows. That's kind of how it's set up, right? The wrap rows would ask you, for number of columns per row. Okay, so since I know that I need 5 columns for sure, so I'm going to be using wrap rows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put wrap rows around here. So I'm just going to do wrap rows, right? And then it's going to ask me for wrap count, which is the number of columns. And I select this. Okay, just like that. Okay, and we have this. I could do 4. And that's where a problem comes in, right? Because it's not exactly divisible. So I just adjust that and do my pad width. Okay, right? So for those rooms, yes, some rooms will have lesser number of people than some others. But I mean, that always happens. Okay, and yeah, that's kind of what you want. You just want to put some headers here, maybe just something like group this, just use a sequence function. Sequence, just so that it spills on the columns, right? Okay, so that's kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this, right? Yeah, so that's kind of what I was trying to do. But okay, maybe just to a sneak peek, into one of the other functions, which is VStack. I can do this in one, with just one function, really, right? Because as I have it now, this is, one, and this is another. But VStack allows you to stack, data vertically. So what I could do is I could take this expression, right? And then I come here. So now I do a VStack, more or less like I'm stacking the headers with the data set. So this is VStack, so that's my first array. And the second array, of course, is the data set. Close. It's going to give me a spill error. You should expect that. So I select the obstructing cells. I do delete. Okay, so right now I have just one formula that pretty much spills this for me. So if I do 3, right, if I do 2, the headers are responding just the way they should, and it's really just one formula, as you can see, that is spilled across the other columns and the other rows. Okay, but that's kind of how I would use wrap calls and wrap rows. I'm sure in the coming days we'll have some more interesting examples, but I think this should give you an idea how versatile the functions are, how useful, how easy they make some of our tasks in Excel. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Hit the like button. You can also subscribe to the channel Excel Moments. For now, I'm out.